Hey, I'm so excited we're here today with Holly Britton and all of you that have littles, or I'm going to even say the people, if you don't have littles and you're still wondering about, man, my kid's just the handwriting. I don't even know. I hear this all the time. I was an English teacher, and I can tell you for certain that the handwriting, oh my gosh, people, it is crazy. And even I feel like the foundations for a lot of these kids weren't there. And then what I love about what Holly does is she talks about and she really makes a connection between development of not only motor skills, but cognitive skills, thinking skills, and brain development. And that I feel is something so essential as I've grown in my homeschooling career and in coaching other families, that this is something that's very, very important that we can't miss out on. I was super protective of my son when we were handwriting, and I would not allow him to type for a very, very, very long time, more than probably he would have liked, and more also than a lot of people did. But I was very protective of that because I knew what a value it was, just practically speaking. But then the cognitive aspect as well, I hadn't even really thought about. And so I love that Holly's going to talk a lot about that today. We're talking about handwriting and skills you might not have thought of before because you might have missed some things that we don't even think about. I know when I was an English teacher, I just thinking about writing and knowing a lot about writing, and then having taught littles, I never taught littles before, but I can tell you there are so many skills that are involved in writing, handwriting. And we don't realize that as parents, how to break down those skills that when they get older, it can get really messed up if and oh, my kid hates writing. Yeah, mine did too. It was my fault. But the but there's so many skills there. And once we realize how to break those down, wow. Now we can really have some fun, which we do now. My son loves writing. He's writing a book. He writes articles all the time. I mean, he's very professional academic writing. It's crazy. I would never thought. And he's a great writer. It's amazing. But it wasn't like that. And so I'm excited to have Holly here because I know I'm going to learn some things. And thank you so much for joining us today, Holly. I'm super excited. First of all, the name of your company just makes me want to give a big hug because it gives me all the fuzzies. Squiggle Squad is the best name I've ever heard. And it just makes me feel like I really want, that's what we want to do. Our kids just like squiggle some things. And that's starting out. And I love that image and that feeling I get from it is so beautiful. So, Holly, can you just share with us a little bit about yourself and like why you started Squiggle Squad? Like what's so important about us learning these things?
Well, Cami and audience, it's so nice to be here today. Thank you. Of course, this is one of my favorite topics, so I'm delighted to be able to discuss it. And I will start just by saying that I too am a homeschooling mom. I homeschooled now my 4 adult children, and it was the best years of my life. And I don't say that lightly. As a matter of fact, I'll tear up if I even think about how treasured those years were with my children. I have 2 boys and 2 girls. I have a lefty, I have righties, and I have a dyslexic. So I feel like I had a little laboratory and was able to teach nearly all the grades, all the subjects for most of their school years into high school. So I feel like just that background that took 18 to 20 years to establish was really the foundation for what I do now as a handwriting instruction specialist. I did go into private education and classroom education. I did go into admin. I did subsequently get my master's and my teaching credentials so that I could go into public school teaching. And it was there that I really started putting all the pieces together as trying to figure out where the big obstacles were to children and writing, not necessarily handwriting, but learning in general. And it just kept coming back to a child's inability, whatever age I was teaching at the time, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, kept coming back to a child's inability to get what was in their head onto paper physically.
So true.
And not just handwriting, but even keyboarding, because there was no fluency. And it kept striking me time and time again that without a flow of mind-hand connection, there could be no flow of thought. And I needed these kids to do higher level thinking. And if they're thinking so much about transcription skills and getting words on paper, they can't access those deeper, higher thinking skills necessary, because they're still stuck on the fundamentals. So it was when COVID happened that I sort of rethought where I was in my teaching career, and realized I really wanted to be a part of fixing the greater problem, at least across the United States, if not, many other countries. But for my little community, I live in Northern California in a rural, I was in Title I school. There was a real lack of connection between what they needed to be learning at the lower grade levels and the frustrations that were happening at the upper grade levels. And so I came out of the classroom. I had tried this idea, Squiggle Squad. I had tried that when I was coaching in kindergarten in private schools. And I had a brand new kindergarten teacher who had yet to get his license. He was in the process of getting his license and had never taught kinder before. And so I needed to come up with a way that he could impart this in a fun way that the kids enjoyed. And so began the idea kind of percolating. So years later then, I decided to make it something. And the Squiggle Squad are a group of 5 animal friends. And that's really done because I wanted kids to connect with the movement needed for handwriting, and little kids connect with animals. So we made them colorful and friendly so that handwriting was approachable and even fun for littles.
Oh my gosh, it's so adorable. I brought my husband. I'm like, look at how sweet
No.
this is. It's so sweet. I love it. I love it. But yes, I agree. When I saw the kids at high school level, and even especially, before that abstract thinking comes into place in like ninth grade, they still are kind of transitioning to abstract thinking. They're still pretty literal. It was very interesting to see them, the level they're writing, and the level of what they could get out of their brains was very limited.
Yeah.
And so I felt like they
Yeah.
needed to really push themselves, not only in, back then we were teaching formulaic writing, which I loathe. I loathe. And so, but for them, having brought up in the system, that was the only thing that could get them through, because they hadn't been cultivated from the beginning. So I feel like if your kids you've been in this formulaic writing, you've been doing, workbooks and things like that, if you can, and your kids are struggling with writing, let's think about these ideas that Holly's going to talk about today, because that can really help you go back to fundamentals, as she said, and then pull your child back up through and rekindle that ease of writing again. So I love this. So
Yeah.
most parent, let's talk. We haven't talked littles in a little while on this podcast, so I want to talk littles for a minute.
Sure.
And how do you know when your child is ready to write? That's a good question.
I think that as homeschooling parents, we need to be mindful that we are getting them ready to write. Even from the day we start reading to them and talking to them, we are getting them ready to write. Writing is just another aspect of language acquisition. And so we are trying to, we are giving them everything from vocabulary to oral language that will come into play with phonemic awareness and the phonics of reading and decoding language. We are getting them used to cadence and pattern, and right to left, the physical, I'm sorry, did I say that right? Left to right.
Left to right, yeah.
Won't do it the other way, unless you're in another country. But anyway, left to right, turning the pages, all of those things are actually preparing them to write. And writing is a higher level learning of language. It's just the next level of learning language. And it's a much more complicated level, which means we wait a little bit longer. We're not trying to get them to write word or sentences, let alone words and letters when they're 2 and 3 years old. We are trying to get them to we call it emergent learning, right? We want them to start. Language in print needs to begin to emerge in their mind as a thing. So we point to our letters on the paper and we start to name the letters so that they are recognizing they're putting a name with a shape. And at that point, it really is just a shape. You kind of alluded to the idea of concrete learning versus abstract learning. They're very, very concrete, very concrete. At the abstract is not thinking is not a possibility in brain development at that point. So to be able to point to a B and say, what is that? That's the letter B. They don't understand that a B makes a sound, spells a word, makes up a thought. That's what you're growing from the base. So that as they then approach readiness, that you've been feeding them language that you're going to then ask them to write. They're building vocabulary. They're building ideas, thoughts, imagination, all of that. And that's going to go into writing content and eventually putting that on paper. I think the way that your audience can look at this, it's very, very helpful for me to think of writing in two main parts, two components. One is the physical readiness that you might be alluding to, and one is the cognitive readiness that we are already starting when they're born. So all that cognitive stuff takes years and years to develop. So you're developing that, which is developing writing. But now if the question is more specifically, when do you know they're ready to hold a pencil and start writing letters? We want maybe to look at two things. One, their physical ability to manipulate their hands, strength, eye-hand coordination, balance, attention, all of that, the physical capability of being able to hold a writing implement. And two would be their willingness. Are they excited about letters? Do they like the idea of writing their name, which they think of really as like, I don't know how they think of it exactly, but it's more like drawing, because they're just making shapes on paper, right? They don't know about the flow yet. They just see their name like a snapshot picture, and then they're going to draw that picture. So when they're ready to start recognizing that and maybe trying to make it, understanding as a parent that at first they're really just making shapes, it's important that they make the shape. They don't need lines. They don't need to hold the pencil correctly. They can point to those letters. Let's say they're spelling Sarah. They can point to SARAH. They name those letters. You could help them sound it out. But again, it's all that emergent learning that they're doing.
That is
And then you're just watching for how they hold a paintbrush, how they hold chalk, how they manipulate maybe a dry erase marker on a dry erase board, and start to see their abilities. I have a almost 5-year-old granddaughter, and it was crazy how ready she was, dexterily speaking, when she was like 3 years old. Was she ready to write? She's still learning letters. She's still learning. So she wasn't. But at 4, yes, she is ready to write. Is everybody ready to write at 4? Nope. Definitely not. If they want to do it, they're excited to do it, why not let them do it? But make sure that you're instructing them correctly so that those motor skills they develop are ingrained in the muscle memory so that they don't stop themselves up as they move up the academic pipeline.
I love that you put both of these in here. So the thinking skills. And yes, we are this one thing that I promote all over the place. It's something that we really focus on in the Inspiring Math and Learning Academy is that read aloud. That read aloud is a base skill. It's a base thing. So when you're reading aloud, you're creating fluency, you're creating thinking, you're creating that whole fit, like how do we do this like language thing?
Yes.
And I love that. And then also the physical really resonates with me because I pushed my son to write before he was physically capable and physically
Mm,
ready.
mhm.
And it became so laborious for him
Yes.
that he hated it.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to do it anymore because he knew he's also a perfectionist. And so he knew how it should look and how he wanted it to look.
That's so
And
hard.
then he couldn't, it was so hard and taxing for him to get it there. He's like, I don't want to do it. It's too hard. It takes too long. And I was like, okay, gosh, I failure as an English teacher right there. But if you
Right.
look that, I always, usually once a year, I post that those pictures, the x-rays of little hands and the five, like a 5-year-old
Mm,
hand versus like a 13-year-old hand.
I
The
love that.
bones are not connected. They're
Wow.
not, there's a lot of soft tissue in a little person's hand.
Yes.
And so like a 3, 5, even 6, 7-year olds, you look at those x-rays, you can just look them up on Google Images, whatever, ask ChatGPT. But you could look them up, and there's so much soft tissue, and you can see the development over time as those bones grow and they're actually connecting together better. There is so much structure. I feel like we ask our kids to do these minute details with writing, and they write small, and that's why some of our kids, we write really big at first, right? Because they're
Right.
using their whole arm instead of their hands and
That's
their
right.
fingers.
That's right.
And so it really is a great indicate. It's like a shock factor, like, oh, they're not actually developed yet
They're not
physically.
ready. And even like the for us, we geek out on the imaging in their hands, but the average mom doesn't have to see that to know that
Right.
they're doing better. They're I think I would really encourage your audience, anybody that's learning, that's teaching their child to learn, to watch how they play. Are they using a lot of shoulder? Are they using a lot of elbow? And then if you want to encourage the dexterity, do things that require the fingers to move, or give them some hand strength, like squeezing Play-Doh, or digging in the dirt, where you're actually, that's all writing preparation. So you want them to begin to develop those, but you're not just saying, hey, get strong fast. You're actually just observing them to then step in as the coach and teacher to say, now you're ready for this. And you kind of give them that next challenge. And if our goal is, like, your goals were valid, as an English teacher, I want my kid to write. There's
Right.
nothing wrong with that. I think sometimes we just need to use their natural propensities and natural abilities to inform our instruction. So I can I can have a kid that writes really early that I'm not pushing. I'm moving with their development.
Mhm.
Like my granddaughter. I'm a big believer in playing with purpose, where you don't push your kids to, you don't have to do this high academic stuff. However, you have kids that are really ready, and you want to jump through those windows of opportunity when they're open, because you need that enthusiasm, that engagement, that desire to learn, and you want to play into that as a parent. Oh, really? You like tractors? Let's go to the tractor museum and play on tractors. We do that in other areas. So, oh, you want to write your letters? Okay. And then you meet them where they're at. And you don't teach them calligraphy right away. You don't even have to teach them cursive. A lot of people believe in cursive first. Well, what if your kids wants to write when they're 4, and
Right.
they can't see cursive yet? They can't, they need things in isolation. Cursive first, great when they're 6 and 7 years old, not so great when they're 3 and they want to write something. So, just kind of monitoring your child, and homeschoolers have that luxury of being able to do that.
You and I are so similar. We're on the same wavelength. I actually call that desire that we have, that we have to do this at a certain time because this is what society says. This is a curriculum. This is everything. That's that educational should. I call it the educational should. And so unlearning that is really key. And then meeting where our kids where they're at is very important. So I want
Totally.
to talk about the brain connection because I know that you really focus a lot on that. And I think it's important. So when
Yeah.
we're doing our dexterity, our fine motor skills, when we're doing those things and we're taking thoughts, how does handwriting help us develop brain skills?
Yeah, this is a really big reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. Because if we think of handwriting as just being a messy issue, like, oh, it just looks really bad, um, then it's not going to take priority in your academic literacy block. If people think of it more of an art form, or maybe you're naturally born writing really beautiful, it's not going to be of importance to you if you don't understand that there's actually a deeper connection. And that deeper connection has to do with the way the brain processes language when you are writing by hand. And there's plenty of peer-reviewed studies on the benefits of handwriting over keyboarding. But one of those main differences is the formation, the kinesthetic movement of writing. We call it tracing a letter. And I don't mean like you see a letter and you trace over it. I mean, actually the movement through a letter imprints it differently on our brains. And then in addition to that, without going into too much detail on certain aspects of this, in addition to that, it has a way of accessing long-term memory, sort of mining the information you already have in your brain by, I don't know, giving you the time, giving you for those of us who've been handwriting for a very long time and use it as a tool, you can feel it do
Yes.
something different in your brain. Well, children that are not taught to use it as a learning tool, I fear will never feel that thing happen in their brain where you go, gosh, I need to get off the screen. I need to get off the keyboard, and I need to just write it out, because I know if I do that, I'm going to find something that I can't find when I'm not focused using that brain to hand connection. So mastery in handwriting takes many, many years, consistent, regular practice, if you will, over several years. So in public schools right now, the focus is, and I'm not kidding you, preschool. They believe that that is where your handwriting begins. And I have had kindergarten teachers tell me, like standing across the table from me in a conference, say to me, can you believe they come up to kindergarten and they can't even write their letters? And I want to say, well, yeah,
Ah,
that's your job. I don't say that. I don't say that, but there's a real misunderstanding that somehow when we show them one time and we practice it in a school year, they're done. But again, peer-reviewed research shows that mastery it's actually hasn't been fully determined when a child reaches mastery, and it could be as high as ninth grade
yeah.
before that kind of handwriting mastery happens. I hear 4 to 6 years. Well, if you only do preschool and kinder, and in most cases they're not even coaching them to do it the right way, then of course I'm going to have problems up in my 5th grade class. Of course I am, because they're still putting capital letters in the middle of their name because they were never told to do otherwise. So I think if I were going to say anything to your audience is, don't think of it as just a messy issue. Think of it as a learning tool that they are going to need to develop if they are going to use it effectively later. You know, they have the whole, are you learning to read or reading to learn? And I would say the same with writing. Are you learning to write, or are you writing to learn? Because we need them up in 5th grade. I need them summarizing science paragraphs. I need them writing an essay about a piece of literature that they read. I don't want to be teaching them how to write by hand. They need to be doing that automatically. And that starts way, way, way down with their first name when they're 4 and 5 years old.
Yeah, I love that you talk about the length that the idea of mastery, and I feel like the longer time is really there because and it's getting longer. And I only say that because practicing, so you say that in order uh I think it's Simon Sinek that talks about the 10,000 hours. So 10,000 hours of something equals mastery. So it's in a specific area, a specific skill. So when we're looking at how much our kids are actually writing these days, especially in public school, but I would homeschool. There's so much done on a screen that is, and so much done typing. Like you said, there's a different mentality that goes into that. It's faster, right? That's my son still thinks that too. It's faster. And I was like, I make him write things by hand still because I mean, he's typing lots of things, but I have to like, no, you don't need to type your, set of goals. You can write that down and write it on a piece of paper. And so he's that 10,000 hours of mastery. That when you think about us old people that when we were in school, we wrote notes to each other, we wrote letters to each other,
Oh,
like
that's right.
literally multiple times a day. We were
It's true.
writing notes
All
in
the
class,
time.
we were writing notes to each other, we were
No.
handwriting letters, we were doing everything, handwriting letters to our family, thank you
Thank you
cards.
notes.
Yeah, the thank you notes that my mom used to make us do every time for
Yeah.
Christmas, right? That's practicing writing, and that's developing that mastery. And our kids don't do that anymore. They text,
Can
yeah,
Can
go
I
ahead.
throw in one of the other obstacles to your
Please.
point about it
Yes.
taking longer is that our kids don't see people writing all the time.
Yes.
So we might hear them reading all the time. So we maybe reading will come to us, but I have been in classrooms where they put on a computer screen
Yep.
the letter A, they have a little robot dot that shows the letter A
Mm-hmm.
being written, and then so no pencil, no paper, no human hand. And then they tell the 5-year-old to go to the back table and practice writing. Well,
Yes.
the kid has no idea. The parents are on using thumb writing, and the
Mm-hmm.
and the teacher is using a if we're lucky, they're using a stylus, but probably not. Probably just going up and
Mm-hmm.
poking things on the smart board. And so they never see it done in culture. So yeah, it's really, really unfair. And to your point about keyboarding being faster, I was teaching in a school where keyboards were used all the time like this.
Oh my gosh.
So they're not even doing QWERTY.
Wow.
There's no flow of thought. So transcription skill, by transcription skill, I mean everything. Like I had one kid that poked with one finger, not even two
That
fingers.
would take forever.
And I'm trying to teach him an essay. It's not going to happen. It's just not going
No,
to happen.
no, no.
No, I had to completely change my lesson plans and really dummy down my lessons. And I don't mean that mean. They are smart kids. They are
Yeah.
smart kids. They were not trained, and that's not
Yes.
their fault.
Right.
That is not their fault.
Yeah, and I love that I have literal notebooks everywhere. So I write notes every day. My son sees me writing notes. I literally I was planning out the next week's live or our podcast episode, and I was writing. I'm like, okay. And he sees that writing all the time, and he sees me doing that. And
I love that.
that's something that I teach a lot, is that example. So if you want your kids to read, you should read. You want your kids to, you want your kids to write. How often do they see you writing? How do we
Yes,
expect our kids to write and tell them write when they only see us tapping?
that's right.
And it's so important. And then also, I feel like they don't understand they don't understand through typing. They don't understand how to um organize their thoughts. And I don't mean that, because yes, you can organize your thoughts, and you can cut and paste and all these things, but you're thinking about it ahead of time before you put it on the paper, because you have a certain, remember we used to write essays by hand. We used to write essays by hand, and you really had to think about, you had to write your outline. You really had to think about what was going on there. And then you write another draft, and then you write another draft. And I feel like part of that gets missed when we're just typing. We're not organizing and really thinking deeply, because you have to really ask yourself when you're writing it hand, do I really, is that how I want to say it? Is that the word I
Totally.
want to use?
And I will take it a step further, because I love what you said. I absolutely love what you said, because we can do it because we were trained to do it.
Yes.
But if we don't make our kids do it, if we don't teach them how to do it, then that thinking deeper and cutting and pasting and organizing on the computer won't be able to happen either, because you will not have trained your brain to use the computer the way it needs to. We find all these tools useful to us, but our brains were trained to use them properly. Another whole can of worms would be the whole AI thing. So
I was just thinking that.
I know, because if we just let them do that, I'm sorry, we were created efficiently, and it is a use it or lose it brain. If you do not use it, your brain has no reason to develop it. So it's not like it's laying dormant in the background, and at some point when I need it, I can call it up. It doesn't work like that. You actually will not have anything to call up if you don't train it from an early age.
Yeah, and we actually have several podcasts that my son, who is very into AI and he knows, he's literally an AI researcher, and he's amazing. But we did 3 podcasts on AI and how to use it effectively and appropriately. And part of that is always monitoring and teaching the skills, thinking skills, before we let kids on an AI, and writing skills as well. But I know we can talk forever. Oh my gosh, we can just go on. We might need to actually schedule another podcast because we didn't even get to part of this.
Yeah.
We're just opening a little window into this, but I definitely want to, if you could just tell parents that, like, if their kids hate writing, which I hear all the time, what are some practical foundational skills they can send their kids back to redevelop some of those skills that they don't have currently?
Yeah, a couple questions to answer your question would be, how old is your child? And really, if they're old enough to have a conversation with you about it, talk about it. Like, why do you not like writing? It may not have to do with handwriting.
Yeah.
It may, but if it does have to do, so find out why they don't like it. And sometimes it's because it is taxing on their brain. And if that's the only reason, then 2 things. One, I would talk to them about why grit and struggle is so important in the learning process. And 2, as a teacher, I would consider slowing down to speed up. I say slow down to speed up, or break it down to build it up. So what part of that writing is really hard to them, back it up so it's easy, and then build it back up again, because it's not fair if they're missing some. I love the analogy of climbing a ladder. And if you want them to get to the top, but there's lots of rungs missing, then they're not going to be able to climb, and they're just going to be mad at you because they're trying and they can't do it. So put those rungs back in to that ladder and see. Specifically speaking about handwriting, the way you can do that is you can actually break it down. There's, depending again on how old the child is. Do you remember learning, and I ask this to your audience, do you remember learning cursive? There was a time when we just practiced our upstroke. We just did that over and over and over again. Get them a really nice pen, get them really nice paper, have them do it with a paintbrush, but break it down into strokes and give them parameters. Like, here's a top line, here's a bottom line. Do a whole bunch of bottom to top, as slow as you want, in different colors. We're just going to and then make it into an art piece, photocopy it and send it to grandma on a card. Like, make it make sense to them. And give them the physical practice, because sometimes it's a physical issue. Sometimes it's a lack of attention issue. Sometimes it's an inability to have precision, which means they just need to try again and again from big to small, left to right, top to bottom, inside to outside, like come in from all different angles. And if they're old enough to have agency in it, say, hey, listen, this is my objective for you. I want handwriting to be easy for you. I want you to be able to just pick it up and use it. What can we do to make it more fun so that you are enjoying the process? And if they're really tactile, like I said, change your paper up, change your pencil up, change your medium up, and then start putting those strokes together to practice to practice letters. And if they haven't yet learned cursive, sometimes that's a good way to just shift the learning into something a little bit more adult, a little bit more just different. Novice helps a lot. So a lot of ideas there.
No, there's so many ideas. I know for sure. One of the best activities I've heard from a mentor of mine, she said that if you take a little box, make it a craft project in your house, and you write letters to write notes, like positive notes, compliments, or something little encouragement or something to each other, and the whole family does that. And you just put them all, and every day drop a little note or whatever in the box. And the one caveat I would give to everyone to do, 100% what I did with my son is exactly what Holly's saying. We backed up, we took pieces. I was his secretary for a while. All these things really help rebuild that confidence because his confidence dropped. And so once he got that confidence back up, then we could start to do. And I will say, while you're practicing handwriting, don't practice grammar too at the same time.
Yeah. Yes. That's part of breaking it down to build it up.
And spelling.
Like, separate it for a little bit. I very much agree with you. There's something you said I wanted to speak to. Anyway, but yes, I very much agree with that. And then coach it. Like if your kids are little and they're still learning directionality, which is important. This is another podcast that we should do. But if they're still learning directionality, they're still learning to make it properly, correctly on a page. You do need to break it down. But then don't go ask them to write sentences and allow them to do the directionality wrong, because it is ultimately a motor skill. And it will get ingrained in their muscle memory. And then you will have a tough time, if not impossible time, breaking those habits. So just as one who taught 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, trying to change that is nearly impossible, right? You need agency. You need buy-in from the kids,
right?
When they're that old, and you need sort of a new approach to handwriting, namely probably cursive. A couple of my kids moved into calligraphy, which was really fun.
That is
It's
fun.
usually the right-handed girls that like.
I'm left-handed. Maybe that's why.
But the creatives like that kind of stuff too.
Yes,
but they tend to like more lettering than handwriting. So anyway. So much we could talk about.
Oh my gosh. Okay. We're having you back for sure. Because it's too much fun. And so you guys, I know that you learned a lot today, and it was just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much here. We came at you with a fire hose. Listen to this again, rewatch, re-listen, wherever you are. And Holly's website, squigglesquad.com, and all her other, including her new Substack, is in the show notes. So be sure to check that all out, contact her, get all her goodies, because she has a lot of things to offer for you, for littles, and just getting a sense. I would even just read all her stuff so that we can know, we can understand and start breaking down those skills in our mind. And if you like this type of content and it's just resonated with you, I'm resonating with you, could you just do me a quick little 5-second thing and leave me a little response and review on Apple Podcasts? If you do that, that would just help me send out to more people and have more people be able to view this and to listen to it. Just if you do that, take a snapshot, take a screenshot, send me a DM. I'll send you a free guide on how to start inspiring love of learning. And also, if you just share this video, share this podcast episode with someone that you know that could use this right now. So thank you, Holly, so much for joining us today. I am so grateful, and I'm so glad that we connected, and I will talk to you guys next week. Next week's Thanksgiving, and I have a special episode just for you.